Welcome back, everybody, to Stories with Bree. I am super excited for my new guest on here on this episode. Her name is Tura. That's the correct way to pronounce your name, right?
You did it correctly, yes.
Awesome. Listen, because I don't have time to be mispronouncing people's names. I don't like that. So I'm super excited because I get to interview, or not necessarily. I don't really like to say interview. I like to have conversations with people, and the fact that I get to have a conversation with another Black librarian, which I put emphasis on that because you'll probably listen to this episode later. My first episode is where I was talking about myself and how I ended up getting into the field of library and information science. And I specifically pointed out, like, I know that being a Black librarian in many ways can seem like an anomaly, like, oh, there are actual people who go to school for this. And I'm like, yeah, we actually went to school to become librarians. And I discussed that. I was like, there was a point where I didn't even know this was an actual thing. And so I'm really excited and proud to say that as not only am I a librarian, I'm a Black librarian, because look, we're still trying to get more diversity and more, inclusion into the field. And we're still trying to do our part. So I'm super excited to be able to have this conversation with you, because it's like, oh yay, another fellow librarian. And we're getting ready to have a good conversation, good talk about, our experiences in the library. So I'm super excited. Did you want to tell the people? So I guess we should start it off. I have a couple icebreakers, but please tell people a little bit about yourself before we go into the icebreakers.
Okay. As she said, my name is Tura. That's Tura. And I currently work in the academic library space. And I've had about 11 years or so in public library land, as we like to say, library land. And so worked in public libraries, got my degree, my master's in library and information science from the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, the iSchool. And in 2017, I think I did an extra semester just because I was trying to be extra and had the energy then.
That's okay.
And so took classes in just sort of all the nice little areas. I did what I was comfortable with, what I'd been doing before. So I took like cataloging, reference, and just sort of expanded into the IT, sort of the information side. So took some programming class, databases class, and then did consulting classes as well. And that was fun because it was just something just a little outside of library land, and very new to me. So I felt like I got a really good education. However, just translating that into the real world.
Yes, listen, I completely understand. And you actually said something, which is something I don't want to say I deeply regret it. I actually graduated from the same school. I graduated
Yes.
before you in 2016. And unfortunately, I did not stick around for an extra semester. I gave myself a year and a half to get up out of there because I was like, listen, I am not about to be paying a whole lot of more student loans. I already got debt. I don't need extra debt. So that's part of the reason why I even I did the degree online, because I was like, I need to save money. I got a year and a half to try to get this done. I went in there, did that year and a half. But part of what I kind of regret is not leaning more into the information science side of my degree, because now I'm kind of in the position where I'm trying to transition more into like IT spaces, and I'm like, I don't feel quite qualified because I didn't, utilize that aspect of the degree more. So I do, if I would have, stayed for another semester, I would have did that. I would have leaned more into that information science side. So I'm actually glad that you did that, because that does make you, I feel like, more flexible in the things and the jobs that you can be available for. And I'm glad you did that. So I'm glad you stuck around for an extra semester and you utilized every aspect of that degree.
Yeah. I would say I also have regrets about my my master's, program choices as well, because I say I took those classes. I took like the first class in those tracks, just so I could see like, oh, what is this area? What is this? Can I even do this? And granted, I did well because we had a lot of resources and people to help us. I wish I had just like maybe taken the second class in the track. Yeah. Because now I just, like many librarians, they'll say, I know enough to be dangerous, but I could not find my way out of a paper bag. Someone was just like, I know how to Google things and get answers. I know which forums to go to get my answers that I need or help me along that track. But it was one of those things where I was just like, well, I want to see what it is, I could watch a YouTube video about what a database administrator does, but unless I'm doing SQL myself, it's like,
How does this help me? How does this benefit me if I'm not actively trying to do this? I say that all the time. I say, how I describe librarianship is that librarians know a little about a lot of things. That's what we are.
And that's how I felt.
Yes, and if we don't know, guess what? We'll try to find the answer for you, because that's
exactly. And I'm really good at finding the answers.
Exactly. And then I learned something along the way, and how I keep myself humble, especially when I was doing a reference. I used to say, I don't know, but we can learn together. So I kept myself humble in that way. And then you end up discovering like all of these different nuances and things. And then I'm an avid reader as well. So then I learned stuff through reading. And if I get curious about something, and I'm someone who watches a lot of different like TV shows and YouTube, I do all of that stuff. So it's like I learn things as I go on. And YouTube, obviously, we're going to be on YouTube, but YouTube is definitely a big resource, especially when I started to pursue going into publishing. The funny thing of how I started publishing is just because I actually went to library school, and for some reason, my grandmother equated me going to library school with me also being able to do publishing. And so she was like, oh, so I kind of like fell into publishing. I'm going to tell that story one day, the full story, because that's kind of how I fell into it. But I definitely feel like that my library experience, like I said, that was one of my kind of regrets, is not doing more of the information side of it. But I don't want to get us too far into, because librarians
get into the weeds of library school.
Love to do that. So, but before we get too far, I want to, ask you my icebreakers. This is something that I feel like I want to ask every guest as they come on, just to get people comfortable and acquainted and get to know you better. So the first icebreaker is, what was your favorite childhood book?
So I don't have favorites of things. I really, really like things, or I'm lukewarm on many things. That's okay. But there was a book, and I remember looking for this book a few years ago. And it was, I grew up in Guyana. I was born in Guyana, South America. And there was a book we had to read for school. And I could have sworn I came across this book again, just like out of the blue one day, and was like, oh my gosh, I have to have a copy of this now. I don't know where it is, but I don't even remember the title, but I just remember the cover. And it really was about young kids escaping like plantation life in the Caribbean, basically. And I remember, I want to say it was maybe set in Jamaica, because I remember like something about the Maroons. And so the Maroon people just, like escaping, and like the journey they took into like the mountains and all of that. And I just remember being very elated as a kid to see like my culture represented in a book. Because all the other required reading were very sort of, Eurocentric,
Absolutely.
kind of at that time. So I mean, we were young when we read that. I don't think we were, maybe fifth grade or so is when we read that one, what equates to American fifth grade, I should say. So yeah, for the life of me, I couldn't remember the title of that book, but I just remember the journey these kids took. And I'm like, that is so brave, like young kids my age, they were mostly like teens at the time. Like just doing something, like taking charge and doing something. And that was very appealing to me um, as a kid who was raised by her strict grandparents, and was the youngest person in the house because everyone else was 10 to 20 years older. And I was often left on my own, which was exciting. We went on adventures and things like that. But it was just like, there was always very strict rules to be followed. And
completely. I was also raised by my grandmother, and there was definitely guidelines that you have to adhere to because she's also a pastor. So it was like, you better fly straight here or it's gonna be a problem. Like you can't.
yeah.
So you have to, you have to navigate the ebbs and flows of growing up that way. And me too. So we are similar in that way where I was mostly alone because mostly everybody was already out the house. So I was just really me and her for a large chunk of my childhood. And so that's kind of where I fell in love with literature, fell in love with reading because it's just me. So now I have to create people. I have to create friends. And so I guess that's part of why, books are so comforting for me because that's what I had, during that time period. So I sympathize with you. I sympathize with all of the people who grew up with their grandparents. Love them to death. Love them so much. But it was a different time, different group of people. So
yes. It just Oh, I love my grandparents. May their souls rest and be proud of what I'm doing.
Absolutely. So I know as a librarian, you have library cards. So I'm not going to even act like you don't have any. My question for you as a librarian is, how many library cards do you have? That's the question.
Well, it's funny you say that. So I need to clarify. My main job right now is not a librarian job. It is a library specialist senior. Mm-hmm. I still work in a library, but I adjunct as an academic librarian for 2 community college campus libraries. So I guess in that hat, I'm wearing the official librarian hat in those positions. And so I have accounts at both of the campuses and at the very large public library system in my city. And I don't even know how many branches they have, but I've only gone to 2 of their branches, the ones closest to me, I should say, because it's a large metro city, and gas is expensive. So your girl, I love visiting libraries, and it's kind of a shame that I've been in this city going on 3 years now. And so one of the things I was like, I'm going to go see all the libraries because they all have their own characteristics and depending on the neighborhoods they're in. And I'm in the Southwest. So just the landscape alone is very different. So that was something that was very appealing to me when I came here and I was looking around and visiting locations. And so, yeah, I would say those are the 3 main accounts I have. And I do have locations of other libraries pinned in my phone as places to go once we're over this pandemic situation we find ourselves in.
I did a video on social media the other day, and I still kind of have almost all of my library cards. And so I went and found them. I had like 10 cards in my hand. I said, this is bad.
Wow.
Those cards are active right now. But I was just like, the fact that I have 10 like different types of ways and access to get to libraries and stuff. And I just hold them because it's a bit nostalgic. And each place that I've lived, I kind of have always, like you said, I go visit the local library. I sign up for a library card because this is a resource. And I want to take advantage of this resource that I'm paying my taxes into. Definitely. So I'm going to take advantage. So I make sure I get a library card. So I still have like all of my library cards cards. And I was like, wait a minute,
Wow.
it's 10 cards in your hand. This is like far, it's too far. Like,
You know?
are we over the edge right now? You know?
Yeah. I still have the one from my where I was a library, worked in the library for like 11 years. So I still have that one, and I just found it the other day. And I know it's deactivated because my boss, she's just like, okay, you moved. We know you're gone. So it's
let's clean up our system.
Yes, but I still have it. I have the key fob one, and I came across it the other day, and I'm like, I'm gonna put this in someplace special. But that special place, as you know, is a place I can't locate right now. So, and I'm gonna come across it cleaning again, or I'm trying to move, and like, oh, there it is. But 10, that's impressive. That's impressive. He should make some kind of art out of it.
I was thinking about it. I literally was. I was considering it. I said, I don't know if I'll ever move back to these places, but I can do something with this. Maybe I should make some type of art out of it. I was thinking about it. I literally was. So it's funny that you would mention that. But
yeah, it's pretty cool though.
Yeah, it is. It's I know it's too much. It's too much. but I guess my next icebreaker is like, do you prefer digital or pen and paper?
Pen and paper. This was, and I thought I was like, oh, with the times and everything. So it was about between 7 years from undergrad and grad school. So I'd been out in the world working and everything, and going to grad school, they're like, oh, you don't need to buy the book. Just here's an article, and I was just like trying to read the article on my screen. And I was just like, I am not retaining things.
Yeah.
And so I just kept printing and printing all my articles and highlighting and taking notes that way. And even still to this day, like I'm doing a paper. I'm like, I have to, and I journal a lot. So like I used to have a blog back in college, and I wasn't very consistent with the blog, but writing in my, physical journal, so definitely I'm tactile that way, I guess. I need that. So
I just really got into more of writing and journaling, like actually physically writing. I've always bought journals, I guess, because I like just having books around. But I've mostly been, when it comes to writing, I've mostly been a digital person. So I've always been digital. My notes apps is ridiculous. Like, that is my cherished prized possession on my phone, is my notes app. And so I guess my next question for you, though, as we move along, is like, who's your favorite author or writer? Like, who are you reading even right now? But who's your favorite?
So I'm not gonna get into the long story.
Don't have favorites, right?
Part of it is that I got very I'll use the word sick. I was using the word burnt out, depressed, grief stricken, what have you. But I was ill. Like, I literally found out, like, oh, you had an actual diagnosable condition. And so I felt burnt out during grad school. So I wasn't physically reading then, even though it's Librarian, you have to, pick books and write on them. But I started listening to doing a lot of audiobooks while I was, so I worked full time while I went to school. And during work, I was cataloging. I'm in the behind the scenes. If no one knows, I'm the one putting in all the data into the system, so you can find the book or the DVD or the music that you want. So I'm cataloging, and so I was listening to a lot of audiobooks or podcasts. So and part of my quote unquote diagnosed thing is like brain fog and memory issues and all of this. So I couldn't even tell you. I'm grateful for the people that I discovered during that time, and I still do, that keep me company at work when my brain is just not connecting. But I will say, I really loved Kinky Gazpacho by Lori Tharps. I was very obsessed with the idea of living abroad, even though I'm an immigrant and, now US citizen. I was just like, I still want to go live someplace else. And I was looking for other Black women doing that, living my dream and figuring out how they did it. So Lori Tharp, I came across her. She is a Black woman. She's a professor at somewhere in Philadelphia. I'm sorry, I don't remember the school, but she has an amazing blog and podcast by the same name, American Melting Pot. And basically she became obsessed with traveling abroad as well when she was younger, and studied in Spain and met a Spaniard and married him and have 3 beautiful children. And so, she came out with another book about hair, Black hair, after that, and some other ones too. So, but that Kinky Gazpacho was something, I don't know, it just sort of opened a whole new world to me. And I read that one around maybe college or after college is when I found it. Because my local library didn't have it. And so I really like her. I used to love Eric Jerome Dickey as well.
Oh, yes. A woman after my heart. That was like my favorite. I actually just, like I said, I hate to keep bringing it up, but I literally just made this podcast and I talked about Eric Jerome Dickey, and I talked about the fact that he's been gone for a year. Rest in peace. He's my favorite. He's going to always be my number one. And
he does hold a special place in my heart, like genuinely so. Just because I'm like honestly, I think I came across him in high school, and I had no business reading that man's book in high school.
I had none.
Especially as a freshman in high school. Like,
no business reading him in actually, I think I started with him in like middle school. I had no business reading him in middle school and high school. I said I had no business reading these books, but I was in there bad. I was in there. He had me locked in.
Yep.
That Gideon series had me locked in. That's where he got me. He got me locked in for life when he made
and there was another one. She was an older author, Black author. You see, this is where my brain is just
probably
it's
Zane.
awful.
You're talking about urban fiction. Is probably Zane. They were into Eric Jerome Dickey, and Zane was the big.
Okay, I didn't do Zane as much. I think I read maybe 2 or 3 Zane books, but that was after, like, in college. Mm-hmm. I didn't. Mine, she wrote. It's a famous book, and I'm sorry, I'm really bad at this, and I wish I could right now.
I don't know if I'll run across it. I know that there was like the book Push, which is by Sapphire. Sister Soldier did.
Yes. No, I read Sister Soldier. Read her, and I liked it. Like what people now consider urban fiction, but to me they were just like in the regular fiction thing. And so like my grandma and my American grandma and my stepmom, who I was living at the time, had her books, this woman's books, and they were just like almost like, women of a certain age getting divorced or going through life issues. And I really thought I was like a middle-aged.
Maybe Terry McMillan.
No, it was along the lines, but she was older than Terry McMillan.
Okay.
At the time, I don't know if this woman is still alive, but she had like a little series of, women finding themselves after divorce or just dealing with their family issues. And I really thought I was a middle-aged Black woman in my teens. So thank you, Grandma, again. And just, I came across Nora Roberts because of my grandma, my American grandma. This is my Guyanese grandma. None of that stuff would have flown. So she would have just had the Bible and some Sunday pamphlets in her house. So.
Listen, my grandmother, Once I got to the point where I can actually afford to buy my own stuff, she wasn't necessarily policing my books because she did have a
Okay,
boundary
good.
there where she was just like, if it's something that you buy, that you create, here's the boundary. You pay for it. This belongs to you. However, if she would have known what
Nice.
I was reading, she wouldn't have been going for it. Like, but it's just like
Yeah,
I appreciate the
yeah,
fact that I did have that type of liberty, that freedom. Is like because I wasn't a bad kid, I was out here. I went to school. I did my homework. I did what I had to do.
yeah.
I got all that done. I had my nose stuck in the book for the rest of the night, and I was quiet, and I
Yeah,
wasn't bothering nobody. So she's just like,
yeah.
she quiet. She ain't bothering me. She ain't doing nothing. She ain't got no business doing. She ain't out here in these streets. I'm gonna leave her alone, and she just let me read in peace. That was my me time. She let me have my
That's
me time.
beautiful.
Even if I wasn't reading what I should have been reading, I probably should have been
To
reading
read.
the Bible, but she let me have my me time. And I appreciate that so much. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny because when you asked this question, I was just like, oh, I know which books I'd talk about, the ones like the Paul Zindale books and, like, oh, what was that one with the girl, Margaret?
I'm not sure.
Oh gosh, I think they were trying to make a movie out of it too. Where it was just like a coming of age book, the thing that will drive me crazy is just like I don't remember titles, but I'll either remember what the cover looks like,
Right.
or just a very specific plot in the story that had nothing really to do with the rest of the story, but my brain, those are the pieces of information holds on to. Doesn't help me now, but as standing at the desk helping a patron, I was like, I know what you're talking about. And I'd go help them. Does not help in this conversation, though.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. As librarians, it's like context clues. Context clues. We have it's almost like sometimes we have to do the guesswork, especially when you're at the reference desk. You have to be like, okay, they give you very vague information. I'm looking for a blue book that has a bird on it. And it's just like, what? Excuse me?
Yeah, I know. You if we were within the last 6 months, I'm good because I would have seen the book. But beyond that, no. And now cataloging, I literally am touching every item that comes in.
Right.
So it's even a little worse in that sense. But yeah, those were the books. I mean, I read a lot of things as a kid. Like high school, read a lot, got into graphic novels. I love Neil Gaiman, and I still read his stuff when he comes out, even though they're kids' books. I love his stuff. That whole sort of fantasy world, sci-fi even. I loved, as a teen, I remember going and getting the little compilations, like the Americans, best American short stories or, fantasy.
But I know about them.
Yeah, so I would get those and just read through. And it's funny because I used to read them, but like never followed up on the authors. Like, even though I love their story, to me, it was just a way to pass the time. So, but those were the authors that like popped out to me as some of the people that I sort of went back to and just like try to read everything. Colin Channer too was another one because I discovered him mid-high school too, and like, oh my God, there's Caribbean people writing, and they're being recognized in America, and so that was great as well. And I loved a lot of the British authors and stuff like that too. So I'm sort of
you're all over
the place.
And that's okay. And that's because that's what you should have. You should have a diverse reading palette. For me, I honestly didn't get into sci-fi fantasy. I want to say that I have now been more into sci-fi fantasy now than I was before. The furthest I went with sci-fi fantasy was Harry Potter during the formative years, and that whole fantasy world. And I still love me some Harry Potter and stuff. I was assigned in college to read The Hobbit and to read The Lord of the Rings. I didn't read that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you go through and you read like the Odyssey, Iliad, and stuff like that. That the old stuff, the old canonical literature.
Yeah.
but I wasn't really into that. I mean, I had to read, like, I remember having to read Kendrick by Octavia Butler. I didn't really read that either. I'm gonna be quite honest. When you are an English major in undergrad, they give you 20,000 books and expect you to read all those.
Yeah.
I was spark noting it up. These are my confessions. I don't have time to read this many books, and I'm taking 4 other classes. Like, are y'all crazy? No, I don't have
Yeah.
this time. And I
I
really lost my zeal. I really stopped liking reading because
yes,
of that. And I, for a long
that is
time, I
real.
wasn't reading because I was just, like you said, burnt out because of
Mm-hmm.
school. And I said, why did I choose this major? This just really
Uh,
fun out of reading. But then I got it back. And so now I'm
good.
at the point where I'm reading 4 or 5 books in a month. And I'm like, wait,
Wow.
slow down. It's
Wow.
I lost time.
I would love to get back to that place, because to me that's like when it just signifies like a health for me, like a nice balance, like things are okay, that I could, enjoy this quote unquote disassociating with like a fiction piece, or
Right.
just getting lost in that. I've been struggling. I held this up. This is called Crying in H Mart. It's a memoir,
Okay.
and it's very new. I think it came out last year, 2021. And I, in my city, I have an H Mart. So I was just like, let me go see what that is. It's a lovely, like, Korean grocery store, beautiful. And it has a food court, and I love food, so like it was a great place. And then when I was cataloging, I saw this book. I was like, oh, that's funny, ha ha, Crying in H Mart. And so without even knowing what the book is about, I was like, I'm gonna read it. And so I get a week and a half in winter break.
Okay.
So between like Christmas and the New Year, there's a week and a half there. And so I had that and a bunch of other books, like a good stack, about 5 books that I thought I was going to get through.
Yeah.
And I did not. As you can tell, it's February, and I'm still in the middle of Crying in H Mart.
That is okay.
Just because I'm slowly getting back into reading. I've listened to quite a few books in the meantime, but
Yeah.
beyond that, yeah. So I envy your 5 books is what I'm saying.
I literally had to build myself back up to reading like that, because there was a very long period of time where I was not reading, and then I had to build that back up. I had to build my palate back up to want to read and to desire to read for pleasure.
Yeah.
And so within the last maybe year and a half, I made the decision. It was like, I'm going to start back reading. And a lot of the books that I have been consuming, because now my reading has changed, because I have a job.
Okay.
I have a full-time job. I'm also running a business. I'm also trying to do other things. And so the way I read has changed. So a lot of my books now consist of audiobooks. No, and I remember a time where that wasn't finna fly for me. I needed a physical book.
Yeah.
I needed something in my hand, tangible, so that I can flip the pages, so I can smell it. I needed like that. And so, but now I have adjusted to the point where sometimes I can't physically sit down most of the time.
Yeah, that's true.
The book. But and even with ebooks, there was a time where I was like, I'm not finna be scrolling on no device. What are you crazy? Give me a physical item. But it's just like, I have now found the balance between, okay, I can actually listen to this while I do my job and do my work, and this is good background noise, but I'm also listening to the story. But it has to be specific types of audiobooks, because they have to catch me. Because if the person that's reading the book, oh no, if you boring.
No, yeah. Narrators are a big thing. Like
narrators are everything.
I'm a snob when it comes to that as well.
Yes, I am. Now that I will say, I am a big snob when it comes to whoever's narrating the book. Because if you bored, I feel like you about to put me to sleep, I cannot. I'll read the ebook later when I have time. So I have the ebook for some books, because the ebook might be more available quicker than the audio.
Yes, that's true.
And then I have some books that I still have physical copies, because sometimes I need an eye break or ear break.
Yes.
So I'll just sit and I'll actually read a physical book. So it's a balance. So I have a balance between ebook. I'm reading one audio book right now. an ebook, and then I have a couple like paperbacks that are sitting. And so
Got it. What is the one that you're gravitating to the most right now?
right now, today, I actually started this book called Mexican Gothic, and it's by Sylvia Marie.
Very good.
It's a new one. I just started that today, and I
Yeah.
have another book that I started yesterday, which actually was very funny. It's called Anxious People. It's for
Oh yeah, I have that one too.
yeah, it just came out. And so it's called Anxious People, and so that's our book, my book club's book of the month. So I started that. I'm on like chapter 10. I was like, this is whoever this author is, this is really good. This is funny.
Yeah.
It's a very odd book to read, and I just finished Grown. I just finished that book by Tiffany Jackson, and that book, I keep telling people that book wrecked me in a way that I was like, wait a minute, I am triggered, ma'am.
Oh no.
I am triggered. But it was good. It was like a really good read. And so I was
Growth is the name of it. Okay.
It's called Grown. Yes, it's by Tiffany.
Yeah, Grown. Okay, with an N. Okay.
It's a YA fiction book, and I have been doing that. I've been getting back into YA fiction, which is funny. It's like I'm doing the opposite now. I'm adult. I'm reading young adult.
Oh, you are in good company. There's a slew of women. That's all they read is YA fiction, absolutely. And it drove me crazy. So I'll just pick and choose a particular, because I can't go back to those high school years. I cannot.
I didn't even read YA fiction in high school, so that's why I said I feel like I'm kind of like I'm reversed in a way.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah.
I was into YA fiction when I was in high school. I was reading adult fiction, like Eric Jerome Dickens, the stuff I wasn't supposed to be reading. I was reading adult fiction. So I guess I should ask you another question while we're fangirling over books, because we could talk about literature.
It's all good.
We can talk about literature all day, but I guess one of my questions is, like, did you always want to be a librarian, or is this something that you kind of just decided as you went along the way, along the journey?
I fell into it. I fell right into it. So I tell this silly story, and I don't even understand the context of this story anymore in my life, because things have changed so much for me. So again, coming from strict grandparents, being the youngest there, and feeling like I had a lot of freedom, coming to America, growing up in Maywood, spent my first year in America in Maywood, Illinois. And if you know, you know.
I'm an Illinois girl, so I kind of know you out there in the corner. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like Maywood was like maybe a 30-minute drive to Chicago proper, and it was not the best neighborhood. And my parents, you know, kind of young in their 30s. It was me and my sister. We're 6 years apart, and we were just in the house. We were literally just like in the house. That was it. Didn't see the outside. Maybe we'll go sit outside with our mom and wait for our dad to come home. Like that was like our life until we moved down to Bloomington Normal area, which is 2.5 hours south of Chicago, in the middle of the cornfield. Absolutely. So we had, so our parents, you know, they were working parents. And so again, books became the thing to entertain us, that and television. So in the summers, we weren't allowed to go anywhere without them, but they allowed us to walk to the library, which was about, you know, I think about 20-minute walk, depending on how slow you're walking, from our house. So we would walk to the library, it was me, another friend of mine and her siblings, and sometimes her friend would, you know, join us on the walk there. And so same thing with her. Her family did not allow them to do anything without the adults present, but they allowed us to walk to the library. And good God-fearing little girls we were. Literally, that's all we did. We walked from our house to the library. There was so much in between. We were like, why didn't we go someplace else? We wasn't going to the mall.
Obedient children. That's why. And we did what we were told.
Seriously. I said we could have been held up as somebody with a pool, something. But oh no, we went directly to the library, and we'd spend like hours in the library just grabbing books. Like we'd come with bags of books, you know, just bags of books. And so I again, that was sort of like the escape. That was always the escape for me. And not putting two and two together or anything, but what if I was trying to get my first job as a teen? Guess where I applied? The library, you know, and so didn't work out, but it's okay. And even in college, the place I quote unquote hung out or met with people was at the library, at Milner Library. You know, we had the 6 floors, and you know, you go up one and you could see majority of the city, and it was cool. And I loved, you know, a particular floor, like that was my floor. The seating was right, everything was right. So I just remember finding comfort in libraries and in books. And so again, 2008, the big crash and trying to find a job right out of college, that was very interesting. And so I was like sending applications everywhere. And again, I was just like, well, I'm not finding a job. Let me go back to the library and start like reading again. You know, I'm going to do something for me while I'm, you know, and walked in the library, and this woman that I know, she's like, hey, haven't seen you in a while, blah, blah. And she's like, I said, I'm looking for a job. That's why you haven't seen me. I'm trying to be an adult. And she's like, apply here. Like, and that's what I did. I know. And so I applied, didn't even think anything of it, because I was like, I've done this before and I didn't get anywhere. So, and plus at that library, you didn't see a lot of people like us. So, you know, at the time, I think she was the only one that I knew. And so didn't think much about it. And then I did get a call back. I got a call back for a job at State Farm and at the library. And so State Farm headquarters is in that town. And that was the place to go and get a job. And it was the farthest thing from my mind, you know, but I went and I got a part-time job there, and they offered me the one at the library, the part-time job working in the outreach services, which was like the bookmobile and home delivery service, books my mail, deposits and stuff like that. And so I said, I'll take it, you know. And then I did it for two years, but worked both part-time jobs for like 2 years. Wow. And just realized, again, I loved the library more than I did corporate America. Yeah. It was just really, you know, more like how my head worked. You know, everything was organized, everything had its place, but it all came together and it worked really nicely together. And I was just like, this is just how the world should work, you know?
Absolutely. Everything should be organized, should have order, should have its proper place. And that's how I feel. And that's probably why another reason why I ended up in the library, because it's like, this goes here, this goes here.
Yes.
Don't touch that. Leave it. Put it there.
It works in this sort of this beautiful way. And then, I mean, after working there for a while, like 2.5 years, I think I did both jobs. And then it was time where I was just like becoming so miserable because corporate America was making me miserable. And I didn't realize that's what it was at the time. And granted, that job was good because you work 19 hours at State Farm and you got benefits, full benefits.
Right.
That's beautiful, you know? And so the job itself, the day-to-day, being on the phones with angry people, and then having corporate on your back telling you, we want you to give good customer service, but we also need you to do it in this particular way in 2 seconds as opposed to 3 or 5. And it's just like not possible, you know? And I just did not like the contradictions there. So I applied for full-time jobs as they came up in both sectors, and I got offered a full-time job working as a library assistant at the public library. And I was just like, yeah, I'll take this, thank you. And just did that without really thinking much about my future. I just did that for good, I think, 5 years, working that full time. And I went from different departments as well. Like what started out in outreach as a part-timer. And as outreach, I got to work in like the technical services department, which is cataloging, acquisitions. Then I got to go on the bookmobile, got to help elderly people who are homebound, like find a collection of books, you know, just really cool things that like I don't think I would have been aware of that was offered in my community. And I was just like, yeah, we touch so many different lives on a daily basis just by the services being offered. And I got into that, like wanting to be a part of my community, and working at that library helped me to do that. And just seeing the people, you know, like getting to work with so many people from all walks of life. Like my crew were like women in their 60s, you know, old white women in their 60s who, you know, had their kids, raised their grandkids out of the house, and they couldn't wait to be retired. And like they were my crew, you know. And yeah, it was a very unique, very gentle way of like pulling me into the real world, basically. And then I just wanted to like to change my life. I was just like, you know, I like what I'm doing, but I want more. I know I deserve more. I need more out of life, you know? And again, I stumbled across a book one day that said, change your questions, change your life. And I was just like, okay. So I listened to that, and it was about a corporate setting, but it's questions you could apply to your life, and just her philosophy of being a lifelong learner and being open, in the sense where, I used to have, it's called a choice map that was on my wall. I printed it out, and it's in the Inquiry Institute, I believe it's what it's called. And basically it's just ask the type of questions. Don't ask why. Okay. Ask what and how, you know, to get you to, because those are questions that will allow you to learn, as opposed to why did I do this, you know, which people only, they ask themselves that question and they don't dig further, you know. So those questions are very limiting. And so yeah, I really like took that book to heart and applied it to my own life, and was just like, okay, I want to get the whole plan in undergrad was to get a master's degree. I was going to be in psychotherapy, or, you know, working in or industrial organization psychology is where I was, you know, aiming towards. But after being out of school for 5 years, you're like, do I want to go back?
And it's so interesting, like, it's crazy how parallel a lot of our life is, like, just having this conversation with you, because I was also, not only was I an English major, I was also a psychology major, and I was thinking about, you know, getting a master's degree in clinical psych, and then I was like, but I don't want to take the GRE, so what can I do? What can I do that doesn't require me to take the GRE? And so like it was either library school or social work. And I was like, and I had this boss that was like, I'm going to like talk you into going to library school. And she kind of helped to guide me into it. And it's not like it wasn't in the back of my mind once I learned that it was a possibility. I already knew that it was like, these are my two options. And I was like, do I really want to go in social work? Do I really want to help people in this capacity? This could be easily a burnout situation for me. This could get overwhelming. And then at the time, I hadn't really dealt with all of the trauma that I had to deal with. So I was like, do I really want to put myself in this position? No, let's go over here where let's go work with books. Let's go, you know, try to figure out we still work with people, but I will be more with collections type stuff and research stuff and all of that. So I lean more into the library thing, and it just seemed to like work out that way. And so you mentioned something, and this is going to be my final question as we get close to our hour mark, but you mentioned something that about your community, and I wanted to ask you about that, because what do you think, like, what does building a diverse, accessible, informational space look like and mean to you? Like, you talked about building community with those older white women and stuff, but what does that look like to you, especially when it comes to the library?
That's a very good question, because during that whole journey, and even now, I'm looking at the services people offer, and there are people who are doing amazing things. So like I went to, so I started library school in 2015, the summer of 2015. I took my first class, and I did not have oh, this is the path I wanted to take.
Okay.
It was just like, I identified that I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm open to learning, and I love information, right?
Yes.
So that's how I approach my library career.
Okay.
Taking as much information and get as much experience as I want to as well. So taking some of those classes, and I knew like I wanted to go to conferences, because that's again another place where you could learn so much more and see what other people are doing.
Right.
Because my community is my community there in Bloomington Normal. It's a college town. Yeah. It has 2 libraries that I feel like should technically be working more together, but they are, you know, but the one that I was at, it was the bigger of the 2, and it serviced all the sort of rural communities with the bookmobile. So that is building a community there, because you're going out, you know, like a 30-minute drive, you know, sometimes 45 minutes away, literally in the middle of the cornfields, farmland, where, you know, there might be 6 houses, you know, in the hour that you drive around, right. And those people are not coming, you know, to 45 minutes, just to exchange their library book or the DVD that they, you know, really wanted to see. So to me, that was building community and staying connected in that sense. And some of the services that we offered, but one of the frustrations was that our library was so limited because the building itself was so small. We got so many brilliant people came in as employees who wanted to do more. Mm-hmm. So like they wanted to have the after school clubs for kids, like programs where they knew kids who couldn't get into the Boys and Girls Club, or their parents couldn't pay for the YMCA after school program, they were come to the library until they were able to be picked up. And instead of them causing trouble, they wanted to be able to say, hey, we're going to teach you, we're going to have programs, either a book club, or we're going to have programs where you're learning STEM things, you know, just to keep you occupied, or have someone, you know, help you with your homework. But again, it's just having resources to offer those things. So going to conferences and just even just webinars, listening to what other people were doing, I was just like, that works. So because they were able to identify what was the need in their community. Yeah. And so as I left within the last 2 years that I was there, that library started to do more outreach in that sense. Like they had someone specifically go out into the community to talk to different organizations to say, hey, what is it how can we also help you all in these areas? So building that community to me was meeting the community where they're at, like really knowing and getting stakeholders from the different sectors involved in building whatever program you're going to offer, whatever collaboration you're going to be a part of, and just staying current and involved in that. And some do it well, and other people, they're not so well. So exactly. So to me, that is what creating a community in library land looks like, is offering, because I remember one conference, these librarians in Canada, they knew they had like a huge refugee and immigrant population. Well, they were white women, Canadian white women, who some of them might have come from an immigrant family, but 2 generations, you know, prior, so they may have a little knowledge, or the new immigrants were nowhere near what their immigrant experience was. So they decided as new citizens, what do they want? if they're refugees, they want to know how to get their kids in school. They want to know where the hospital is. They want to know where the police station is. They want to know where they can find a job. They want to know where they can get food or work. Right. So they identified those like 6 areas of being immediate needs for new immigrants. And so they teamed up with the city and the organizations that would get them, you know, make sure their documentation is okay, all that kind of stuff. And then they would do these new citizen tours where they would start at the library and they would take them literally in a bus and point out, this is the hospital, this is the library, this is the police station. And they give them a nice little baggie with materials that are in their language as well, so English in their language. And the material had the phone numbers of, you know, the children's librarian or the school district or the things, just resources that they didn't have to feel like they were floundering to gather. You know, they identified that need and put it all together. So to me, that was like such a beautiful, you know, example of building community, you know, and welcoming people as well. And, you know, they had the resources, and it's, to me, I was just like, everyone's like, how did you guys get that off the ground? Like, that sounds like a huge feat. And they're like, well, the city and the state, the government leaders said, oh, we're welcoming these people and this is what we have. And we're happy to work with whoever that wants to help us, you know, because even the government is limited in their resources in some capacity. So the library is like, yeah, we don't have that much big of a budget, but this is what we could organize, you know, this tour. And that was their contribution. So I thought that was very brilliant. And it was just, it always sticks out to me as a great example. But yeah, even in my city, I look on their website and, you know, offering free tax services at the library and things like that. I take part in that. I'm getting the taxes done by tax professionals.
Yeah,
you know,
and I might end up, look, that sounds like they do here too. And I think I need to be actively taking the advantage of that this year, because listen, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, okay, my taxes are getting a little too complicated for me.
Yeah.
For myself. I'm tired of doing this on my own. So like, I probably want to do that. And those are just like different resources that libraries offer. And so I am just so excited that I got the opportunity to have this conversation with you. I feel like we need to have another conversation with
anytime
like that for sure, because this was very enlightening and enriching. And I feel very good about being able to have these conversations with my colleagues, with my peers, because it's just like, we're out here, like there are younger, you know, younger generation, millennials, whatever you can, Gen Xers, Gen Zers, we're out here, we are librarians, we're doing the work. Although all of us may not be working in a actual role that has librarian in the title, it does not mean that we don't have the librarian, you know, like that we don't have the degrees, that we don't have the knowledge. We have the knowledge. And in so many ways, we are actively using our degree every single day. In a librarian role, which you happen to be, you know, an adjunct librarian on top of working in a specialist position. So you have like a twofold thing there. You're being paraprofessional and professional, but you have both of those things, which I just currently is just working in a paraprofessional role myself. But to have these conversations, to have these ideas, to talk about these different things and these perspectives, I felt like it was so necessary. And I'm just, like I said, I'm super excited. I'm glad that you accepted my invite, because I was like, I'm gonna ask Tura. I don't know if she really wants to come, but I'm gonna see. And
I appreciate it. And I thank you for reaching out, because I'm like, when I read what she was about, I was like, well, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm doing a lot. And this was enriching for me, because it reminds me of like why I'm in this profession, even though it doesn't go as picturesque as like I planned it in my head. You know, I'm not in the role, or the environment isn't as exactly. Yeah. So it reminds me another reason why I'm sticking around in this environment, because I do, and at the end of the day, what we do is going to help someone.
Exactly.
You know, and I like to be a part of that process.
I want to be here, and I think that's why I'm still here too. Like, a person wants to like leave the library world, but then it's just like, but I kind of have to stay because I have to see this through for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know, as other options, present themselves, I'll dibble and dabble. But I think I'm always going to still be attached to
yeah, I totally get it. I totally get it. I have to say, one of the other things I identified too with why I decided to pursue the library thing, like more professionally by getting the degree, was as a customer service rep on the phone in corporate America, you don't see the end result, you know? Like, and so there's that whole, oh, I need a resolution. I need closure. I need, this transaction might go on to 10 other people. And I never hear about it, how it ended, or, and so that was a part of me. I just never felt like the transactions were complete. And when I'm at the desk or in the bookmobile helping someone, I know the transaction is complete on my end. It's a sort of like a clear cut. Yeah. But what is even better is when that person comes back and they get you helping them, or they ask for you saying, okay, you hit it out of the park with that exchange we had. This is what came of it. Yeah. Or hey, how else can you, what else do you know, or what else can you help me with? And I feel like I'm part of that holistic, part of helping someone as a whole, because even in a small conversation we have between me walking from the desk to the shelves, or between just the interaction, we could be talking about so many other things that it just kind of pings on like, oh, we could also help you with that. Oh, I hear you saying this. Let me, and so to me, that was, I don't know, it was a little more gratifying, and I think I got a little addicted to that.
And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. I think in many ways we're all addicted. So I don't want to hold you too long and keep you for the rest of the night. But I do, like I said, once again, I just appreciate you coming by, and we'll have to have a part 2. We'll have to have another conversation, because I feel like there is so many things that we could really, we need to deep dive into some other conversations and some other topics that I have that we really didn't get a chance to talk about. But so I expect to be back. That's all I'm going to say. All right. Expect to be back, because I feel like there's another conversation to be had, specifically about definitely diversity and diversity and inclusion, and just really honing into that space in the library world. And I don't want to say the ugly side, but I guess that's really what it is, talking about the ugly side of this burden in many ways that we kind of carry as African Americans, as Black librarians, this two-edged sword of being in the library world, and how that kind of has affected the career ideas and the reality that we have. So we're definitely going to have another conversation. Okay.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for listening. Wherever you're watching, listen, this video will be up on YouTube, and it also, the podcast will be out at the end of this month. So stay tuned. Tura, it's been amazing. Thank you again. And yes. So yeah.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.